Okay, I think my Mancunian accent might work today because I've been living down south for 30 years and they still don't understand some of the things that I'm saying. So, is that loud enough? Yeah? So there might be someone coming from Cosmic Tula as well to spray the area. You okay? Okay. Because I'm going to do a couple of practical things with you, and then I'm going to share a little bit about why I'm stood here, starting with the present, like those films, and then I'm going to go a little bit into the journey of how I got here. So hopefully there's some nuggets of information or insight that will be useful to you. Okay, so I've worked in mental health and wellbeing. I have to hold this really close. Do you have to hold it closed? No? Am I shouting then? No? Is that okay? You can still hear me? I've still got that paranoia of my mum telling me that I'm shouting all the time. So I've worked in mental health and wellbeing for over 25 years on the clinical side of things and following the spiritual path, but as a bit of a closet hippie for a long time until it was safe to bring out the crystals and the cards and tell people that I was trying to work with other dimensions at the same time. So thank you very much for coming here today. And the first thing, in terms of what I've learned in mental health in all that time, all of us are on the mental health continuum. All of us will experience depression, anxiety. 1 in 4 people at least would have had some level of trauma. A proportion of those will have had PTSD. Proportion of people have had difficult circumstances as children that still mar us today. 1 in 4 women, I used to oversee wellbeing programs for domestic abuse services. 1 in 4 women would have experienced domestic abuse, and the stats are there. So I'm stood now here in front of all of you recognising that it could be any of you. So some of the ideas and information that you're going to get from all of the talks, from all the stalls, and what I share are applicable and practical, as well as things that you can implement in terms of your own life. And it's important that we take responsibility for mapping out the journey that we want to make in terms of our own vision for ourselves. So I call the title of I struggled to come up with titles and name anything, to be honest. So I called it Break Free and Master Your Destiny, which I thought, is that a little bit lofty? Master your destiny. But what the message I was just trying to convey in the title is that we've all experienced a level of conditioning. Our concept of who we are, what we do, our role as a woman, as a man, our class, our race, everything influences us. So in order to create the life that you want, or design the destiny that you want, and even master that, because it's a process towards, over here, I've got most of my, together, but it's a process, and we slip and fall, and we can go up the hill and down the hill. So the idea is that you take responsibility and you work out where you are on your journey, and then you listen to what connects and resonates with you, regardless of the source. And that's one thing I've learned over the years in my spiritual and clinical life, is that there are many paths to well-being. There are many paths to just feeling good. So if you're aiming for peace or feeling good or happiness or tranquility, doesn't matter what you're aiming for, just decide, make a decision. So you've made a decision to come here today and listen to me, and that I'm truly grateful. So thank you for that. So I'm going to start with this year. I've had an amazing year, and it's had highs and lows, but I made a decision early this year to go to as many wellbeing festivals as I could, either to teach at or to just go to, because when I was growing up there weren't as many festivals. I don't even think you could buy tarot cards or anything like that. So that was a decision that I made this year, and I got to the end of the year, and everything that I've put in terms of the decisions I've made and the actions I've taken, I've just allowed if we took the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks, the momentum for that has built up to the point that things are now starting to come towards me that I haven't had to think about or plan. And sometimes that's what happens. So you don't have to know the how, You just have to know that you want something other than where you're at, but also accept where you're at, because there's nothing wrong with you, so it's accepting who you are and where you're at. So in terms of my professional qualifications, for those that are interested, I trained as a psychotherapist and I qualified in 99. And I then went on, because I worked with a lot of people, I started to notice a difference in my energy and how I experienced myself in relation to other people. So I trained as a Reiki healer, so I'm a master Reiki practitioner, quantum touch healer, and I've recently done master colour healing. And they're all different modalities that work in different ways. I'm a podcaster and I'm bridging psychology and spirituality, so I've had a podcast for 2 years, it's on Spotify now. And I've got a YouTube page as well. And that was really just me using the different modalities to express myself. And when I share the story with you, even I'm standing here thinking, wow, I'm standing here. So I wanted to share that aspect of the journey and what's possible and the kind of different things that I've learned to get to where I am now. I've got a stall here, and if you sign up for my email, I've got various things on offer. I do a coaching and wellbeing program. I do some one-to-one. I don't do much one-to-one coaching, but I do some. And I've got a website that's got loads of tips and tricks for all sorts of different aspects of holistic thinking and healing that can just introduce you to some really good information that's out there. So forgive me for using a bit of paper, but I've let go of the idea of doing presentations since I left the corporate world. So my journey actually starts, like most of us, we've got history. So I was born in Manchester and I'm the fourth child. I've got 3 older brothers, and we were born in a not even working class family really, because back then my mum was a single parent by the time she had me, and back then it was really difficult. You couldn't get any money, you couldn't get benefits, and life was really difficult for her. So I think by the time that she had me, life was taking a toll. So she experienced depression, probably had her own mental health issues, but you don't understand that as a kid. And I was really shy and anxious, believe it or not. And I was really quite introverted, and I worried about my mum a lot. And anyone who's got children, or if there's things going on in your life, don't think that the kids don't notice, because they do. And it was probably my first, maybe spiritual sort of checkout, is that because religion is what informed everything about who we were when we was growing up, we didn't have this concept of spirituality. I was quite angry at God, and I sort of blamed God, and I was like, why aren't you helping my mum and helping her suffer less? And it was really difficult to see that. And so I got into my teenage years and I started to get out and about a little bit more. And by 18, my dad, who was an alcoholic, he died. And me and my mum sort of started to part ways, and I left. I had a friend who said, what are you going to do now? And back at that time, anyone who's over 40 might remember, you had job centres, and you'd have a board with little cards on it with jobs, and you go up to the people on the desk. And I'd go, I fancy doing that, because I was in hotel and catering, and they'd ring up the manager, and then I'd be on a National Express bus going to work in Wales or Cornwall or wherever, and I did that for 5 years. So that was good, but I think I was probably quite, I wouldn't say depressed, but sort of, if anyone understand or has seen a Lowry picture, Lowry drew these really drab scenes, and that was like my memories of the north for a long time, because it did rain a lot and it was grey, and people did walk up the street to the factory and back again, and I kind of used to look at life like that. And there was a part of me that just knew that I didn't want that life, but I didn't know anything else, because we didn't go on holiday and I hadn't seen anything else, so I didn't know what else was out there. But when I went working away, I worked with all sorts of different people, and that was what opened up to my world and love of travel and experiencing all sorts of different cultures. So it's kind of bittersweet, but underneath, because I'd fallen out with my mum and things had happened and I hadn't really expressed myself and I kept it to myself, that had this sort of just low-level greyness or something about me. Anyway, I got to London. I was only meant to be there for a couple of months, and I met my husband, and within 18 months, we was married, pregnant, moved in with my mother-in-law, and my husband's family were from India, so we were one of the early mixed-race families as well. and had my first child. Mother-in-law was great as a gran, but drove me nuts on several occasions. So by the time I had my second son, I decided to move out. So we moved out and we got our own place, and it was lovely. But my younger son, exactly, thank you. It's what I tell my clients, and it's like, no matter, he's 34 now, he's 6'4", and he looks like a huge rugby player. But he contracted, he got bronchial pneumonia, and he'd had meningitis, and he's had all sorts of illnesses. So I spent a lot of time in and out of hospital with him. And as a parent, like, now we've got time to go and explore things, but when there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and sometimes you just have to pay your rent, get your food in, look after your kids, and go from A to B. And doing anything for yourself, having an hour out, well, even getting to the bathroom on your own without your kids following you is sometimes a challenge. So my life at that time was a round of hospital trips and trying to deal with it. We spent a large amount of time at the John Radcliffe in Oxford. So of course these create rips in our experiences. And I've only shared this story a few times because I think as a parent there are some things that you go through that never completely leave you. They're just there, they just hurt, you know, it's just an aspect of your experience. But I've been encouraged to sort of share my story more and more because of when you're from a background like I was from. You know, I fell out of school at 14. I stopped going to school. I was disenchanted. And teachers back then didn't really care about poor kids. They were just kind of, you know, happy to let you drift and not cause them any problem. And, or they'd sign you up for some kind of job that they thought that's what all working class kids did back then. And so I just knew that there was something different I was reaching for. And that's the thing, is sometimes you're reaching for something different and you don't know what it is. So you've just got to open yourself to that experience. So I decided at that time as well that I was going to change track. So this was like the start of me changing direction. I got a job, voluntary work at the Samaritans. And then I realised how sad, depressed, anxious and suicidal a lot of people really felt. And it was a challenge, but I felt, sorry, I can't think of the word now, but, you know, it mattered a lot. My colleague said to me, Mel, why don't you train as a therapist? And I was like, what? You know, I fell out of school at 14. I'm not even sure I can remember how to write an essay. And I didn't have the confidence and I didn't have the self-esteem, but I can't remember how I ended up there, but I did a 6-week course and the tutors were amazing, positive. I didn't realise back then they were trained in NLP, so they were like really positive, really supportive, and they wanted to see you grow. And that was a really big deal at the time. And the information that I was learning and discovering just opened up my mind. So I signed up for a year and I started discovering all the psychology of like why I felt the way I did and what was happening to my mum and attachment issues and trauma, and now we call it adverse childhood experiences, and why my relationship with my dad was flaky, and all of this helped me make sense because I needed to understand, because sometimes if you've experienced trauma or issues with attachment, you can end up shutting down so much that you're sort of almost like impervious to any new information coming along, but that information can really help you just open up and consider a possibility and then move forward. So I did the therapy training and I ended up doing the 4-year course, quite surprised, and just towards the end of 99, I thought, that's it. Kids are much in better health and I've moved out my mother-in-law and things have improved, and I really started to get this sense of, yeah, till my husband told me that he'd taken up a new hobby and it involved heroin and using a lot of money. So I thought, I laugh at it now, but it was a bit difficult at the time. So I thought, I've got a choice, because I was working alongside social care and in education, and it's like, you know, part of it is about being a role model and the other part is, you're a mother of the children. It's like now you're splitting your family up. Anyway, I made a decision and we parted ways. And so from that point, I became a single parent. But at the same time, I was really focused on what is it that matters to me and where do I want to put my energy. And the only energy I had really was to do the academic stuff and to look after my kids. And that's where I put my focus. So things started to improve and I ended up I went into CAMS and I ended up managing services. But then our history has a habit, we call it triggers now. You know, our history has a habit of coming up in the form of other people. And so, you know, we can either end up with a narcissistic psychopathological manager that wants to control you, or work in a toxic environment. And I worked for a local authority until 2016, and it was great, and I did loads of work, and I felt really good at the work I was doing. But my type A personality from a working class background, who just worked 200% and put too much into everything, and then when you're in a toxic environment, no matter how much effort and work that you do, it's very difficult to remain and keep your head above water. And I started to feel that I was starting to drown in that experience. And at the same time, I'm thinking, right, I'm getting older now, I've done this now for over 20 years, and I think I've given out a lot. What do I want? And we all arrive at that point, and often it's when we get to midlife, because our kids are grown up, we've got a bit more time. But actually, I would invite you not to wait until midlife. I'd invite you to start thinking at whatever point you are now, even if it's one little thing a week that you do that makes your soul sing, that makes you feel good. It's really important to do that, and I'm really glad that I did. So yes, I'm in a toxic environment, and I hook onto the law of attraction, Abraham Hicks. And for me to cope, so anyone that does repetition, mantras, and listens to anything that makes them feel positive, that was my goal every morning, because I had to go into work, into an environment that I didn't like working in by that stage. So I played the law of attraction on loop for about 3 hours every morning before I went to work, to just try and keep myself in that upbeat, positive state. But it's really difficult when you walk into environments sometimes where there's just so much gunning for each other and negativity and all of that. Anyway, so I sat on the bed and I had a conversation with whoever decides to listen and said, right, I think I'm ready now to take the next step and leave, because I can't sustain myself here. It was going to drag me down. And you start to realise it's like there's a chance that you're all empathic. And empaths are notorious for giving out so much but don't put their needs first. And so you give out and you end up with burnout. And then you end up swimming around in the void and confused and wondering what you do next. So I was aware of that. And I can't teach people to do things if I'm not implementing the tools and techniques myself to make myself feel better. But all I was doing was keeping my head above water. So I had a word with myself and made a decision to make a move. And at the same time, we all used to work 5 days a week. You know, that was it. That's the way we were conditioned to work. And I started seeing people having Fridays off, and I thought, well, that'd be nice if I did 4 days a week or even 3 days a week. So I left there and got an opportunity. I actually asked them for redundancy, and I was really surprised that I was like the 1% they said yes. So I was able to leave and go on the road with my camera and my newfound hobby. Because the first decision I made was, what is the thing that I do that makes me feel good? What is the thing that makes me light up? What is the thing that gets me up in the morning? And it wasn't the thing that I was doing 8 hours a day. It was getting my camera out, going to the coast, taking pictures, and sitting on the beach, meditating, feeling the sun on my face. So I thought, how can I do more and more of that? Because when you do more and more of that, what you're doing is you're slowly moving out of the vortex that fills in all the time and reenacts or triggers and stimulates the negative thinking. And it's quite hard sometimes to do it if you're in an environment at home or work, like I said, where it's toxic. So you have to get yourself out and about into nature, which now we know gets rid of a lot of the EMF that we're influenced by and all the other stress that we carry in our system. And that's the thing. In all of the issues of all of the clients I come into contact with, in terms of everyone's experience of being on the mental health continuum, stress predisposes everything. So if you're starting to get stress, short-term stress, yeah, fine, you're moving, you're getting a job, you're going through a transition, but you've got to put in tools and techniques to help you reduce that stress, because otherwise long-term stress, and we know now, affects all aspects of our being, and we end up with all sorts of illnesses, heart disease, diabetes, all of these other things. And I can't over-egg that enough, that in all the clients that we worked with, the ones that ended up with more serious issues were often the ones that had issues from childhood that they never spoke about. And after the birth of my second son, I had really bad depression, and I didn't understand it because they were all calling it postnatal depression. But the fact I was a woman and I'd just given birth wasn't just the only factor that I had hormones. It was the fact that I'd spent all those years not talking to anyone, not sharing whatever it was I wanted to share, because I don't know about you guys, but there was a lot of secrets in our families when we were growing up, and you were told not to share a hell of a lot of information. My mum told everyone that she was a widow. You couldn't say divorce, and you couldn't say what all the reasons were for why you lived the way that you did. So all of that provides a sort of an accumulation and a knock-on effect that if we don't start to look at it and breathe through it and experience it and not be afraid of it, because often that's what it is. And I was scared of feeling. I was scared of getting in touch with those feelings that I was sitting on and trying to ignore, to the point that when I had a baby, you can't ignore it because your hormones just open you up to absolutely everything. So I was a bit miserable for a while, but slowly got through that. So anyway, that's why I started at the end, because I thought I want to show you that it isn't all depressing. So so I left that job, and I've taken a few jobs working for NHS England and Reading University. I took jobs there. But the problem is, after 26, I didn't realise, I wasn't sure if I had burnout or my heart just wasn't in it anymore. And that's the other aspect of this, is sometimes when you do the spiritual work, you start moving out of the head, out of the academic, out of the intellectual, into the heart, and you just start to find it difficult to motivate yourself to get up in the morning and do that. And sometimes we call that depression, but sometimes it's not depression, sometimes it's something else. Sometimes it's your soul calling you into the next phase of your evolution, into you expanding and opening up and connecting with any of those dreams and possibilities that you had as kids. And I've been told a few times, follow what you love to do as a kid, and we were having that conversation earlier. I was like, I can't train as a roller skater and do that for a job, but I'd forgotten the other things that I liked doing as a kid that I'm bringing in now, that's helped me become more creative. So the sort of last bit of the journey was 2019. I'm driving to work, and again I go through this, right, everything's looking up, my son's at university, and I've had the house to myself, I can play my music really loud and just really enjoy that space without them moaning that they don't like my taste in music. And I was driving to work one day, and I had a 5-car pileup car accident, and I have to admit, I thought that was the end. I thought that was it. And I think I was over 50, and when you get to 50, you think, there's no jobs, they don't want us, it's all young people. We have this conditioning, don't we? And we have this idea about midlife and what it means. And I don't know about anybody else here, but I used to watch Last of the Summer Wine and think, oh my goodness, if I get to 30 and look like that, let alone 50, I'm not sure I want to be here. But what it did, that car accident, it forced me, it literally took my legs away from me, because even when I had burnout, even when I was depressed, even when I was sick, I still dragged my backside into work and still did everything. I ignored what my body was telling me. I ignored the signs. I have to take responsibility for that. Now, why the accident happened, I don't know. I was in a lot of pain, and it was purely physical, and I couldn't do some of the basic stuff. And so I'm sat on the sofa, and this is when I'd been doing yoga now and meditation for a decade before I had the accident. And I did that to help me with my stress levels, although falling asleep sitting up doing meditation is not always a good idea. And so I'm laying on the sofa, and I realise what the word surrender means. because sometimes, and people think this is depression, sometimes you have to lay there and just allow yourself to sleep and to heal. And I didn't think I really had an option, but I was blessed at the same time. I could pay my bills. I wasn't in the same situation as my mum, and I have a lot of gratitude and sense gratitude for being blessed in that way, that I could do that. What didn't help, if anyone watches Black Mirror, is I also watched 54 times of Bandersnatch, and that sort of messes with your brain a little bit when you're in a bit of a difficult place. But I lay there and I thought, right, these two things. I didn't drive for 6 months after that. I had a bit of PTSD and nightmares and all of that. But I understand mental health. I've been in the field a long time. And my boss at university used to work with people who'd had brain injury and was able to sort of encourage me to do certain things. So I was working at home, but that thought that I had in 2016 about wanting to work 3 days a week had just come about. I was now working 3 days a week, and now I was working from home. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That blessing came in. I put it out there, and I didn't even realise that it's now happened. So I thought, well, I've had this inkling to become a yoga teacher, but can I become a yoga teacher at my age? And, I can't do headstands and, bend myself like a pretzel. So can I do that? Conditioning, who we think we are, what we think we can do. So anyway, I thought, right, I'm going to spend the money that I get back from the car, and I'm going to book a month in Ibiza, because I love Ibiza. I've been there loads. I love trance music, and so I decided to book into it. I wasn't that well when I got there, and I was still in a lot of pain, and I had sciatica and everything, and I thought, right, by day 2, I won't share the choice of language at the idea of why did I sign up to do a month's yoga teacher training intensive. So I surrendered and I let go of the idea of doing it, and just decided, okay, I'm in a retreat, it's vegetarian food, no alcohol, next to the beach, what's not to like? So I did that, and by November 2019 I'd come back. My son had now graduated from university, and I was dead proud because he was the one that was sick. And it was like this every time we got through a year at school. He's got university, he's got through year 1. Me and his brother, what he got? 9 GCSEs. How did that happen? Because he'd been so impacted. He'd got like symptoms of like ADD. We never got him diagnosed, and it affected his hearing and all sorts of different things. So if you've got a child that's got extra needs, you know what it's like. It's like, your stomach's on call all the time, and you don't want to say anything, you don't want to moan, but you're there you're rooting for them. Anyway, so he graduated, and that was the end of that year. And I thought, right, I found a nice little place to do some teaching. I'm 3 days a week now. Now's the time to seriously think about where I'm going next, and to put some of these plans properly in place. So I come back, started teaching, and then what happened? 2020, I won't even mention that word. 2020 was traumatizing for absolutely everybody. I don't even think we realise in mental health services the impact that this has had on our kids, on our environments, let alone, I won't even go into politics about what's going on there. But so I'd already been at home a year, and I'm a bit of an introvert anyway, and I was happy working from home. But I think I got to that stage in my job where I couldn't watch the paper pushing anymore, and I couldn't watch some of the way that decisions were being made. When we had kids turning up in A&E with psychosis and psychotic symptoms and experiencing things that, they would never have experienced had some of those things happened. So, so that was COVID, and I decided in COVID, right, what do we do? Loads of people got creative, didn't they? Got on TikTok, got on YouTube, made videos, and started doing lots of things, because we don't want to sit there being bored. We're humans, we like to evolve, we like to grow, and that was beautiful to witness. And it was beautiful to witness this different sense of community that people were creating, and that's what I thought. So the last project that I worked on was a program that I designed aimed at women who'd experienced domestic abuse, and it was a wellbeing program. But this time I was able to design it with all my knowledge and experience, but bring in a spiritual aspect. Because in mental health we ignore the spirit, we ignore the soul, like it's something that we shouldn't even talk about. And yet that's such a fundamental feature to so many people's lives. And we was able to bring in the law of attraction, holistic thinking, meditation, mindfulness, everything. I don't mind what anybody does, but it's a case of find something that you can do today that can work for you and build on that. So, how are we doing for time? Where's she gone? I'm at 30 minutes. Okay. So, top tips. And I've got plenty on my website, but first of all, you have to track where are you at right now, what you're happy with, what you're not so happy with, and what is that little calling, that little nudge that you're getting every so often that says to you, I'd love to do this. Don't call it small, don't call it immaterial, just explore it, do it, experience it, and if you like it, do it again. And that's what I did with the yoga. And I do the yoga because I'm quite cerebral in my head a lot, and the yoga grounds me and brings me down, but also helps me connect with people, helps me do like this job. If you're experiencing anxiety, depression, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got a mental health issue. Sometimes anxiety is excitement. Sometimes depression is we're sitting on all the rage and anger and feelings that we've got, but we're so used to sitting on it that we shut down. It's a coping mechanism. So find someone to talk to that you trust. Do some voluntary work. Have a look at where you are right now. If you're in a constant state of stress and overwhelm, you've got to do things to bring your stress system down, your nervous system down, and then go out and start experiencing things, because otherwise you put yourself at risk of having accidents and things like that. So there's lots of different things that we can do, and I hope some of what I've shared with you shows that even when I got to that point in 2019, and seriously, I thought, that's it, my time on earth is done. But I thought, well, I'm still alive, and I actually did feel this sensation of being carried while that car was doing a bit of what's that movie? Final Destination, because that was the image, that's what it looked like. But I felt that, and there was something that connected me even deeper to my spirit, and I thought, well, I'm here for a reason, so what can I do? And what can I take from what I love, and what can I let go of, and what can I increase more of? Because I didn't think this wasn't planned in January. I think this started getting planned in August. And I'll say to people, oh no, I don't know, because I have taught academically, I've delivered loads of workshops over the years, I've taught teachers about mental health and wellbeing and worked with loads of kids. But when it comes to connecting with your own story and the things that you found difficult, and it's like, Mel, you got to tell your story, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a victim to those things that happened. But they were difficult, and that's the thing, you don't have to be a victim to it, but you acknowledge it, you accept it, and that's who makes you who, you know? So it's connecting with who you are right now, and what lights you up, what makes you feel good. If it's music, play it longer. If it's photography, take your camera out. And if you've got people in your atmosphere, they say, don't they, that the 5 people closest to you is going to be an indication of what's going on for you as well. So think about the people that you hang out with, and think about creating some tools to cope with people that are around you, because you don't have to leave situations, but if it gets overwhelming and you can't manage, and you start to feel like you're being swallowed, you've got to do something about it. You've got to make some changes. So I'm in midlife now, and the biggest joy now is my eldest son has got a 3-year-old, and I now have an opportunity to use all the things that I wish I would have known when I was a parent, first time round, with a beautiful granddaughter who I love to experience pure, unadulterated, unadapted joy. So of course you'll be conditioned to some degree, because we're humans and we have to make rules and create a culture around that, but I get to experience those blissful moments that I'm open to and didn't see coming. Because when you're in a dark place, when you're in a place where you feel like you've hit the rock bottom, you don't know what's coming next. So you've got to be able to trust in something and just know that that's going to work out and things are going to come in your direction. And that's why I wanted to share why I've had such an amazing year, because I got to teach at Kent Wellbeing Festival in a marquee with my trance music playing through the speakers. I can move about because now my body is like, I'm 99% pain free, and enjoy being in a room with 50 other people that are feeling that vibe too. And for me, that was just like, yes, that was worth it. So thank you for listening.